So Sammy, I don't know if you saw it, but Caleb Williams already throwing strikes in Chicago throughout the first pitch at Comiskey Park. Whatever. I'm not going to say whoever it's still Comiskey Park to me. And if you listen to the show, you were here, Sammy. I hope you were paying attention. I wish that I wish Caleb would have thrown out the first pitch for the Cubs. And I wish that the White Sox would just have called Kyler Murray. Bring in a Cardinal. I understand you're Chicago. I do this. If you missed the end of the show, I went through this with Braggs. I always ask every White Sox fan that I see, if I'm sitting there, even out here in Anaheim, and I'll be like, hey, oh yeah, you're White Sox. That's great. Who's your football team? And they all look at me like I'm nuts. Because I would say about 100% of them don't realize that, number one, the Cardinals started in Chicago. I think a lot of them don't even realize that the Arizona Cardinals once played in St. Louis. It's been so far removed, but there are people in this world, and as a matter of fact, there's some in my family who are White Sox Cardinals people. They still hung on to it for whatever. Like you washed your hands of the Bidwells, and then they always make the joke like, well, you're still with the McCaskey family and you only have one more Super Bowl to show for it. I'm like, that's fair. But in any event, it was cool to see him. I think the Cubs, I know that Caleb's already been to a Cubs game, but do a little more, but whatever. We're not here to talk about that. We're here to talk about the Lions. That's right. We're going to get the insight of Cynthia Frelund as we go in through the Lions schedule. We'll talk a little bit about the Bears. So Sammy, why don't we go ahead and start the show?
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast with Adam Rank.
It's Hester trying to work it back to the middle. Gets past the first wave, and here he goes. It's Hester inside the 30. Hester's going to take it all the way for a touchdown. And no flag, 92 yards.
The sickest Chicago Bears and fantasy football podcast. Sports entertainment like no other. It's gonna be sick.
Hey everybody, welcome to a special edition of the Sick Podcast with Adam Rank. We're doing a series right now. It's similar to Rank's Rivals that we do during the season, where we're going through the schedule of our NFC North opponents. Actually, we kicked it off with Braggs of CHGO, and we looked at the Bears schedule, and the two meatballs came together to come with 12 wins for the Bears. But what about these other teams? Because I think that other teams, fans of other teams, are a little as optimistic as we are. And one of the teams that's brimming with optimism right now, they just held the draft. They're the current reigning undisputed NFC North champion. It's the Detroit Lions. So if we're going to talk Lions, we're going to go to our good friend from the NFL Network and from our lives. Cynthia Frelund is going to be joining us to talk some Lions. And I don't know how you did it. We make the joke. By the way, this was on Twitter not too long ago. There was some guy, I forget what his name is, Joe something, who tried to tell us, because it was Marcus and me, and I think you might have been tagged in this too, where we made the indoor cat joke. He's like, I've been making that joke for fun. I'm like, oh, stop it, you. I don't care. We stole it shut up. But the indoor cat, Jared Goff gets to play 100 games indoor. What is up with that? How did you swing that?
Well, I asked the commissioner very nicely at the draft if he could make sure that the schedule came out very favorably for the Lions to make sure, Jared Goff play inside as much as possible. And, the commissioner was like, okay, Cynthia, whatever you want, because clearly you make the schedule and the rest of us are just here to, make sure that you get what you want.
Mike North goes out to screw me every year. Because the first time I ever met him, I'm like, oh my God, it was the night of the Royal Rumble, as a matter of fact. And I said, hey, did anybody ever tell you look like CM Punk? And he's like, who is that? I'm like, okay, dude, we're never going to be friends. And then I make fun of his job from here on out, because every time I know that he goes on GMFB and Schrager and Kyle are always like, oh, your job is so like, bro, we could have a computer spit this out in about 4 seconds. 80 different stop it. I admire, and considering what we do and what we have to do to fight for, that a group of people have somehow banded together to be like, hey, let's make our job seem so indispensable, make it seem so difficult. Because I got to solve this in about a minute. And I did on the podcast a couple of weeks ago. But in any event, it's a good schedule for the Lions. How are you feeling about the Lions? I know that you were there in Detroit for the draft. That town seems fire. I'm legitimately happy for the Lions fans. What's it like? What was it like being back there for the draft and everything that was going on? Because excitement has never been higher for that team.
It was really special. I mean, obviously my personal story is that my father worked for General Motors his entire career. So not only was 2008 a pretty bad year for football in Detroit, but it was also a horrible year for Detroiters just in general. People who lived in Michigan just decimated by the auto industry, really, going through a lot of terrible things. So it was really nice to feel like this camaraderie and like Detroit's back. And like, I don't care what team you're a fan of. The draft is the ultimate moment of hope for all of us. So the reality is, like, if you can't be happy and find some joy in like the city, like people were tailgating starting at 8 a.m. because all good Midwesterners know that one must tailgate for every single minute of this draft. So the people just came out and they had fun and they're with their families. It was kind of like what football is all about. So you don't need to be a Bears fan or you don't need to be a Packers fan to say like, oh, no, everyone was a fan of football that day. And Detroit really brought it together, like really special. And again, the kind of the hope and the grit, like, you talk about a team embodying their coach and Dan Campbell with the grit and all his silly words, but it was really special to see.
A couple of things here. I can't believe I've never asked you this question because I know that your dad worked for General Motors. We've talked about this. I never asked. Maybe I have asked and I forgot, but he worked in the building that looked like the tires, right?
Yeah, that's called the Renaissance Center. I don't know if I'm like telling a secret, but Detroit's actually moving, or GM's actually moving out of that building. So it's a hotel as well, now as well. So it was kind of this weird, I'm like, oh my goodness, the Renaissance, the Ren-Sen, if you will, is no longer going to be the home of General Motors, like random, but
that's awful.
Onward and upward.
It's such a cool building. And it's like, oh my God, your dad, like, I can't imagine like what it would be like, because that's such an iconic building in the world. And then like, oh, that's where my dad works. Like, that's got to be pretty cool. It's great to see that train station come back. I like Detroit. I like Detroit as a city. I like the Detroit people. I know that like whenever we sit here and have poke fun at the Lions, and this goes for Minnesota as well, because I love Minnesota. I love the city. And I love the fans.
Right.
Whenever we poke at it, it's always fun. Like, hey, sibling rivalry. Legitimately hate the Packers and their fans. They're fake fans. I just laugh every time somebody's like, oh, the Green Bay. I'm like, Green Bay's been good for a long time. But the second that goes away, all the fans go away because nobody's from Green Bay. You're from Michigan. I'm originally from the Chicagoland area. Like, there's a reason why we root for these teams. It's not like, oh, Brett Favre was good when I was 12, so I'm a Packers fan, which is about 90% of their fan base.
I will say it was pretty special that I got to tell Barry Sanders, who is the reason that I became a football fan, on stage in front of 300,000 people. That I was like, I think at least 75% of this crowd agrees with me when I say thank you for making us not just Detroit Lions fans, but football fans in general. It got a little misty in there for this big thing of dust came up, and like it was a little dusty for him. It was very dusty for me, but it was kind of a cool, one of those moments where you're like, wow, like I used to go to games with my dad and like watch this man do this thing, and I was a little girl, and now I am standing on this stage and telling this legend how much he means to me. Like it was again, you don't have to be a Lions fan to know how special being able to tell someone something like that in front of so many people is.
There are 3 running backs in NFL history that I will sit there and listen for somebody trying to make a case that they're better. This player was better than Walter Payton. I don't agree, but I will listen to the conversation about Barry Sanders. He's one of those 3. I'll let everybody decide who the other 2 are. Wait, 2, 3 other guys. So 4. I think Walter's the best, but like Barry Sanders is that guy. And I, like you, got a chance to meet. He's such a delightful person. Like, I really love Barry Sanders.
Yeah, I don't know. He was super. So it was very special. I like to get a little sentimental about all of it, but it was a really special moment. And the draft, I mean, I was sitting there thinking that, I'm pretty sure that like the Lions won the draft given I don't know if they knew how to draft so late in the draft. I wasn't sure if they knew how to.
Yeah. What do you think about that? I mean, like I made a joke that it seemed like 3 of the 4 teams in the NFC North were trying to get better for this season. I'll let you decide who the 4th one was. But I really loved what the Lions did in the draft.
Yeah, I mean, adding Terrion Arnold, I did not think would be, first of all, I did not think would be available. Number two, so the Lions really benefited from the fact that it was offense for the first half of
Right.
the draft, right? So because they didn't really need offense. So it was a really nice, solid draft. I truly, as like a, having lived through the Matt Millen era, I always get a little worried come draft time because it has not always gone well. But I was also worried because like usually we're drafting 3, five,
Yeah.
not all the way down in the 20s. So
Well, even last
I mean,
year when you were good, you were drafting in the top 10 because you had Seattle's pick.
exactly. So I mean, I wasn't used to it, but I was really happy that number one, he was available, and two, I mean, his personality is so. I got a chance to talk to him, and all of those corners, actually, the top 3 corners, of which Philadelphia got 2, had great personality, very different personalities. But Terrion Arnold was, I mean, he had the moment of the draft being like, they're like, what did Detroit get? He's like, they got a star. It was, I mean,
Yeah.
it was fun. It was fun.
I remember doing my mock draft with a twist, and I really started to watch him and really bought into like how great of a player he is going to be. Didn't like to see him go into the Lions. I'm like, of all, like, really, like, and obviously that's what they needed. And I like the way that they've drafted over the last couple of years, because Jahmyr Gibbs, regardless of whether you think that that was a luxury pick or not, but it was a smart pick. Like, I feel like sometimes those picks pay off, and Jahmyr Gibbs is definitely going to be paying off. And I think similarly, like Roma Odunze was that kind of pick for the Bears this year, where, hey, we could have used somebody else maybe, but you're like, why not go for the superstar and get a superstar for your team? We saw what had happened last year with Jahmyr Gibbs. So, and he wasn't great during the first, 8-9 weeks of the season, but once he got going, that team was amazing. And I think Roma Odunze could do like kind of a similar thing. So turning this to the Bears for a moment, what did you think about the Roma Odunze pick? Did you think that was the right thing for the Bears to do at that moment?
I loved it. I mean, I think ahead of the draft, we were talking about it, and I had put Rome there a few times, even before the additions to the receiving core were made in free agency. I think part of what makes it so, like, the Jahmyr Gibbs analogy is really good. Last year, Dan Campbell told us, he's like, we're going to fold him in. We're not going to, out of the gate, he's not going to start as this guy who we're giving a ton of reps to right away. We're going to, work him into the rotation. And that actually, I mean, it's not as sexy for us for fantasy purposes, but I think for Bears purposes and Roman Odunze himself purposes, I think that will be a really smart way to kind of get the right sorts of reps, and the right sorts of, the opportunity for Caleb is better that way too. And kind of the matching of the two of them, especially any of those top five positions, you can't fault a team for getting, meaning like quarterback, left tackle, wide receiver, cornerback, and of course pass rusher. So you kind of can't fault a team who's picking high. If you think a stud is there, take them, because the price tag is not going down anytime soon. And building with young talent on rookie contracts, you can just get more better players. And that is my great English lesson for today. More better players.
More better players. It's funny too, because, Keenan Allen is been a great player in the NFL. He's not going to play forever, and who knows how many games he plays this season. I think that years past, the Bears would have been like, well, we got Keenan Allen. Why do we need another receiver? Like, that's kind of a loser's mentality. I think this is a built for the future mentality, where they figure like DJ Moore is going to be here for the long haul. Roma Odunze is going to be here for the long haul. I'm biased towards Tyler Scott. So I think that he's eventually going to take over, be the slot guy, whether Keenan Allen plays in 2025 or not. And so I thought like it was the best way to do it. And I know everybody's like, well, what about their line? I'm like, well, they traded for Ryan Bates. They got Nate Davis last year, who, missed some time and did something. I'm like, if we have a quarterback that gets rid of the ball quickly, like, watch how good the line is this season for the Bears when the quarterback's not holding onto the ball for an extra beat. Because I think like they're great run blockers, but their pass blocking is bad. It's like I think the quarterback held onto the ball too much, or even ran back into pressure. Like we were showing a video of Darnell Wright, playing against Aiden Hutchinson. And obviously Aiden Hutchinson was playing a contain role. And then he had one where Darnell Wright pushes him 20 yards back into the field, and Justin runs into him. Like, I get it was a great play. It was a strip sack. It sealed your whatever. I get it. But at the same time, it's like Justin ran into it. So I think that Bears line might end up being a little bit better.
in general, you need to have everyone on the same page, right? Like if you're going to have quick throws, I mean, Tua makes his O-line look better because they get the ball out of his hands in 0.1 of a second. I mean, I'm exaggerating, but very, very fast, right? So that helps. You don't need to hold on as long. I mean, the interesting part for me will be you just need to have Caleb get to a point where he can recognize what the defense is giving him, because that's where every single rookie in the history of rookies ever, it's not automatic day one. You need to learn. It's not like you've seen every single defensive cut. Like there's a reason these are pros, and that's just the thing. It's like just give him just enough time to recognize what's in front of him so he can make the decision he's supposed to make, because it's all like decision tree stuff, right? And if you just get, it'll get better and better and better, even if week one it's tougher, because you have to be able that you can't replicate it even in preseason, and especially not preseason, but like, you can't replicate that speed or what the defense is doing with your own staff. You just can't.
No, it's true. And and when we're recording this on a Thursday, when Caleb Williams is going up against the Bears defense for one. So the highlights are now him going against the defenders. The defense had a better day on Thursday, which I think should be expected this early in the season for all the reasons that you just said. Like it's a different speed. It's not USC. It's not the USC practice squad anymore. So it'll be a little bit of an adjustment, but I think one that he'll be able to overcome, adapt, and all that stuff. But one of the reasons you're here. Oh, by the way, we did notice you doing great work with the NFL chess. Justin Reed. I don't know if there's a player in the NFL I like less than Justin Reed. You want to know why? Because
I absolutely want to know why.
he's an excellent soccer player. Excellent, like world class. And he was on GMFB when I was in New York. He was there, and I point blank, I said, you know what? We're the reason why we're not good worldwide in soccer. Like, why didn't you just stick with soccer? You and Christian Pulisic, we would be dominating these teams. We only need like one or two Justin Reeds. I mean, he's almost too tall to play. But it's like, if you would have stuck with soccer, like we need three of you guys to do this, and we're there. But no, you got to go play football.
He's also a really good golfer too.
Oh, he's great at everything, and then he's good at chess. I'm like,
no, he's like really good at chess. Like sometimes in these tournaments, it's not their first sport. If you consider chess a sport, that's a question we all have. But the chess this year in the chess tournament was good chess. Like you have to play. The format is fast. Each side gets 5 minutes, so it's a fast pace. It's called Blitz, and it's a fast paced game. And Justin, I mean, when he made mistakes, he got out of it. Like, and sometimes it's hard to do that in that fast format. I mean, like, and now we've had 3 defensive winners in a row. So obviously, defense has an advantage over offense, because 3 whole times is so much of a sample set that, obviously. Yeah.
It's just, he's annoying. He's too good at everything. He's just, he's almost Timberlake. Like, it's like, you just got to be good at everything. But in any event, I just had to throw that in before I forgot it, before it left my mind. But I do want to get into this Lions schedule with you. A lot of expectations on this team. I have them. Well, I don't want to go. We'll go through a little game. I don't want to put you on the spot with game by game all the time, but we can break it off a little bit. Now, when you were there for the schedule release show, how do you determine that? You do a meet like, hey, this is the expected win total for them. How is that? How do you do that?
Well, since we already know who they're playing and where they're playing, then it doesn't change. Some teams actually change pretty dramatically, because like when you have 3 away games in 4 weeks, or if you're traveling a bunch, back to back, you're playing a lot of hard quarterbacks, or, there's different stretches where things can be easier or harder. It could change at about 0.3 games, which is pretty sizable considering everything gets closer to 8.5 games this far out. We still have a long way to go. I mean, the number of free agents this year, especially like think of safeties alone, like they're not on teams yet. So we have a long way to go. But as of right now, we kind of draw a line in the sand of like, all right, post-draft, once the schedule's out, where do we start? And then it evolves as we get closer. So, just kind of the order for, like, for example, gosh, I can't even remember which team it is. All of their hardest teams were like broken up by their bye. So it was actually very helpful for them because it was like two hard ones, break, bye, or break, and then one last hard one. Then it was pretty average the rest of the way. So it was kind of wild, actually. So.
Yeah, unlike the Bears, who play every one of their division games after the bye, they jam them all together, and then they also put a roadie to San Francisco. Which again, Mike North, upset that I said he looked like CM Punk, continues to take it out on me. You must be good friends with Mike North. Well, number one, the Lions getting a bye in week 5 is stupid. I hate the early buys.
Yeah, like, historically, the best week for buys are 10 or 11.
Yes, like a normal. Like I just don't understand. You have look, weeks 8, 9, 10, and 11. Put 2 divisions off per week. Boom, done. We're done of it. It's fair. Everybody gets dispersed. Otherwise, it's always the Giants and the Patriots always seem to have late buys. Teams like the Lions, even though they're good now, early buys. But the opening stanza here for the Lions, you play at home against the LA Rams. It's a tough team. It's a Matt Stafford revenge game. Is it a Jared Goff revenge game? At home against the Buccaneers, on the road against the Southsiders, and at home. So 3 of their first 4 games are at home. They'll have a home field advantage in Arizona. Is it easy to say the Lions are starting 4-0 this year?
I mean, it's achievable. It's easier than in most years. I mean, it's like, I don't know what we're going to see from the Seahawks. The Seahawks to me are an undervalued team just in general. That could like sneak up on them because that October 13th game, I am sure the Lions had so those first 2 obviously are rematches against playoff teams in their road to the NFC Championship game last year. But that could be a trap game there against the Seahawks ahead of the bye, because that Cowboys game with the ending that whatever that Dan Campbell's doing something special for that. He's got a lineman's going to catch a touchdown. Like it just has to happen. So, it could be a trap, but I think
there's a bye leading up into that game. So I don't think that Seattle, they'll still handle it because there's still a long time before they're going to be playing the Cowboys.
Maybe. It's possible. I'm not getting my hopes up, but I think they have a pretty hard.
Get your hopes up. They're going 4-0.
Starting, after Thanksgiving and till the end is gnarly.
Well, let's look at this. Okay, so I give them the Cowboys. Right, I think 5-0, definite start. Then they go on the road for Minnesota. I think that might end up being their first loss. But but what do they see JJ McCarthy? I mean, that's a winnable game for them.
I don't know what we're going to see from Minnesota. Minnesota is one of the teams that I feel least confident about what the product is going to look like on the field. I know Justin Jefferson's good, but I don't know what's going quarterback. I don't know.
Sam Darnold getting the ball. I think Sam Darnold might end up being their dude.
I like Sam Darnold. It's not that. It's just, I feel like depending on how their open goes, they could be still figuring things out that early in the season. I think the end game, should the Lions need it, is against Minnesota is a scarier one for the Lions, than this first one.
Yeah, I can see a very, that gives me, I might switch these around. I'm still tweaking my personal ones because my official NFL.com, NFL Network picks will come out in June. I'm still tweaking it. I got to make sure, because I go through and I think about things like this because I truly believe that Sam Darnold's going to come out and play well, and he's going to play so well, and the team will, because I don't think the Vikings are very good, but it'll be hard to bench Sam Darnold because he'll be playing well, and then finally he'll have a game where he throws for 188, throws a pair of picks, and they're like, aha, now we can get JJ McCarthy out there, and it could actually hurt them. Could be something similar to when Eli Manning took over for the Giants back in the day. The Giants were 3-2, I believe, when they benched Kurt Warner to bring in Eli Manning, and then they ended up not making the playoffs. But you have to look at it is this a real good? Are the Vikings a playoff team? I would say no. And so I would think that at some point you got to be well, regardless of how good Sam's playing, we use the first round pick on JJ McCarthy. We have to start him. Week 7 seems like it makes a lot of sense because I think the Vikings will be coming off a bye in that one. So from there, though, again, in week 8, you guys have the Titans, and then you come up and you have a back-to-back stretch of the Packers and Texans. Is this where the rubber meets the road for the Detroit Lions?
I feel like the Lions are one of those teams where they'll split with Green Bay, but like they'll win the first one, lose the second. Everyone's like, oh, like home, they'll be way better at home, and then that won't happen. Like it just the Lions do things in reverse. I think that the Texans one is hard. To me, all the division games are easily splits, right? Like you win one, you lose one, and the Lions win the inexplicable ones, and they lose the inexplicable ones to me. But I think that the CJ Stroud and whatever the Texans have been doing to get all of the players, that's a tough one. That's a tough game right there.
No, it makes sense. Typically when I do this, depending on the team's really good or really bad, like it always feels like the division games are going to be 3-3. Like unless it's a really lopsided division with I don't see the Patriots winning a lot of divisional games, so to speak. But I think for the NFC North, I think it's pretty safe to say, I'm saying this, and I'm sure I think I have the Bears at 4-2 in the division. Bears at 4-2, losing both to Green Bay. But in any event, I think that's a tough one. They got Jacksonville. Is that a London game for them?
I don't think so. I think that's a home game. I don't think they go to London.
I guess we would be wrong. Could be wrong, but they got Jacksonville, and then the Colts, and then before Thanksgiving Day. Now we were doing this. Now this is where the Bears come into play. I got the Bears winning the surprise. I have the Bears winning this one, but the Lions have not been playing well on Thanksgiving. Like what have they lost? Like 7 consecutive Thanksgiving games? Like it's something incredible.
Yeah, no, it's not good. I don't understand what's going on with it. Obviously, the good thing about these turnarounds are not great. The good thing is that you get Green Bay and you get a little extra time for that one. So feels a little better, but I think it might be the turnaround. I'm not sure. They're terrible. I don't know what it is. They have like the turkey makes them tired. The tryptophan, drop weird ones on for sure.
What would you think if the Lions playing host of the Bears every Thanksgiving? I think that should just be a thing. Like if Dallas and Detroit can have those games every year, just make them play the Bears every year. Because then the Bears would know and it'd be fine. And I would agree to that. I would go up to the McCaskies and be like, if you guys are never going to be on Hard Knocks, then you're going to play every Thanksgiving in Detroit. Take your pick. They would probably pick that though.
I mean, they would 100% pick that. I don't know why they don't want to be in Hard Knocks. It's so interesting. Like, whatever. I guess they have their own reasons for it. But usually people fall in love with the Hard Knocks team, not dislike them. So,
right. But it happened with the Lions a couple of years ago where everybody loved them.
Even the Jets last year, like people loved Aaron Rodgers after that. Like,
a
lot better than they thought of him before.
I liked him less. I ended up liking him less.
You were the only one.
No, I guarantee you I'm not.
Okay, listening to this podcast, people probably did. But I think in general, people were like, wow, he came across really well.
Yeah. They're like, hey, he's saying the right things. He's like, hey, that Lombardi's looking mighty lonely out there. That was a great line. I'm sure somebody wrote that for him. He did fine. He equated himself nicely. I'm trying to think somebody else who's been making a huge comeback. Oh, it's Bryson DeChambeau. Bryson DeChambeau. We had a friend, our dear friend of ours, who's no longer with us, Deke, she hated Bryson DeChambeau so much that when he lost, I felt like her hand guiding Xander Schauffele's ball into the cup on Sunday at the PGA. But funny enough, I think Bryson has been able to kind of rehab his image, and I think that Rodgers kind of did that on Hard Knocks too. So I will concede that perhaps people enjoyed Aaron Rodgers a smidge more last year. But you know what? The Bears do a nice job with they have an in-house company. It's the 1920 series that they do. And they released one Thursday night, which was fantastic. It's like, if you're doing that, like, how is that any less distracting than going on Hard Knocks?
Don't ask me. I think they should be on. I think all of them. I mean, I'd watch Hard Knocks on any team. So I think they should just do a rotation, and then you just know it was coming and whatever. You know what I mean? Like these rules about can't be a playoff team or one that I don't even know what that means. But all I know is that I would watch it for every team.
No, for sure. I mean, it's compelling television. Listen, I watched The Challenge, for crying out loud. So I don't have much room to talk about anything, but I love reality television and I love Hard Knocks. And I love making sure that my computer's plugged in. It's screaming at me right now, like, you're running out of time. Okay. So I have the Lions, like, they have a very advantageous schedule to start the season. But starting with Thanksgiving, they play host to the Bears. They play host to the Packers. They have a 3-game homestand, which is great. You're like, hey, we're getting 3 games at home. Amazing. But it's Bears, Packers, and Bills. And then they go on the road to play the Bears and 49ers, and then they're at home against the Vikings. How many wins do you see out of that one for them? Out of those, what is it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 6 games. What do you think is a 7 games? What do you think is a realistic expectation for them starting in week 13?
4. I'm not sure which 4, but 4. I think they get just over half. I like that Niners one will come with a lot of extra passion. I feel like that one feels more achievable than beating the Bears twice, which makes no sense, but that's how this division works. I think that the Bills game, the Bills are going to be an interesting team this year because people are only thinking about, I feel maybe like the national narrative's a lot more about Stephon Diggs or no more Stephon Diggs. And the reality is like their corners and their defense is completely different. Like Matt Milano hasn't been practicing yet. So I'm less worried about their offense than I am about their defense, if I'm honest. So I don't know who the Bills will be this year. They're less certain. There's a lot more volatility with them. And again, not on their offense, on their defense. By the way, Matt Collins played in the chess thing. He was really good. Who knew?
Nice.
Yeah, Matt Collins was really good. So anyways, I don't know that Bills one. It feels weird because I feel like I'm more worried about things like what will the Colts be? Because if Anthony Richardson's really good, that makes me feel completely different about them. And then if they're like, even, with Gardner Minshew winning all those games, he was kind of winning by being a gambler. He wasn't winning by like sound football strategy, right? Like he was taking chances, and I'd rather have Dan Campbell against a guy taking chances than like if Anthony Richardson really good, like, no, thank you. I don't want to deal with that.
Yeah. And that's one of the games in week 12. They are on the road at Indianapolis. I think that's a very tough game for them. And I actually have picked the Colts to win that one, or will be picking the Colts to win that one. I think the Bears get them on Thanksgiving, but they should beat the Packers. They should beat the Bills for all the reasons that you mentioned there. And they should beat the Vikings in week 18. San Francisco, if there's one coach though, that can will them to a victory in that kind of situation, like, hey, you know what? We had this team in the playoffs, things of that nature. Dan Campbell, let's do it and let's go. An interesting one, a Monday night game. So that's why, that's, again, when you're looking at these schedules, that's kind of like, Braggs and I were talking about the other day, the Bears played very well against the Lions last year. So it's not weird to be like, I think the Bears could sweep them. The Lions have struggled on Thanksgiving. That's a thing. They're catching them at home. I think this will be Jared Goff's first road game. I think Braggs pointed this out. Jared Goff's first outdoor game is week, 16 against the Bears. And so, you have them on the road, you have them outdoors the week before they play San Francisco. I think that outside of being a meatball and outside of being a Bears homer, I'm like, I could make a realistic case for the Bears winning both of those games without trying to be the most homeristic of all time. There's actual reasons behind it. It's very rare that I have reasons other than like I was born in Schaumburg. Actual football reasons to go ahead and pick the Bears in this one. Then you got the San Francisco one. But overall, I got the Lions in the playoffs. I got at least 10 wins. What is your expectation for the Lions? How many wins are you thinking?
The models right now, because remember, everything's not binary with a 1 and a 0. It's like 0.64 or 0.6 to 0.4, that type of thing. So I think it comes in right around like 10.2. I do have them winning the division again, which is wild to me because, just being a Lions fan. But I don't have I think I have everyone in the NFC North exceeding expectations from that city with a lot of people who go in where I saw you and Carrot Top.
Oh my God. Carrot Top and me. We talked about the Bears. I have a very conservative estimation for the Bears. So I agree with you. I think I'm right on board with you. I have 10 wins for the Lions. I'm very optimistic about the way they start the season. I think there's going to be some toughness through the middle. The way that it would work out right now, if they're the 10 seed, based on my projections, that would give them the number 5 seed, which means they would open the playoffs. Again, who's 4? Oh, they would know because they would open. Yeah, they'd be on the road at Tampa Bay. They'd be on the road at Tampa Bay to start the playoffs.
Tampa Bay? You have Tampa Bay winning the South again?
Yeah, should they not be?
Well, I don't know. You just don't think Kirk Cousins can get it done? I'm not asking can Kirk Cousins win in the playoffs. I'm asking if he can get them to the playoffs. I think the South is the easiest division this year. Again,
maybe I rethink that. I think like why? Because I love McMillan. Because I think McMillan is going to be the fantasy. I think if there's somebody, because everybody's like, who's the Puka Nacua of this year? And Roma Odunze is too obvious. I'm like, of people, when people say the Puka Nacua of this year, I think they mean like somebody nobody's talking about who can rise up. And then I'm like, well, I was talking about Puka Nacua last year, so don't say nobody was talking about him.
That to mean who's going to set a record or like be that. And I don't think Rome will start out the gates like that. Like I think
that's the problem. Yeah.
Right. So
it'll take them some time to get there. I think McMillan ends up getting a big role with this Buccaneers offense and does very well for them. And he's been somebody that I've been sneakily trying to. I kind of want to keep the lid on it because I like Keon Coleman too. I want to keep a lid on a couple of these guys, but at the same time, it's our oath that we take as fantasy enthusiasts that we do give all the information that's available to everybody. So if you have Detroit 10 wins, we both have Detroit with 10 wins. That would be second in the North for me. You have them first in the North, which means you don't have the Bears winning 12 games. How many wins do you have?
Any team in the entire NFL winning 12 games ahead of the season, like this year. That's not. It's rare for in May a projection to be that high. They're all way closer to 8.5.
All right, but as a human being on this planet who enjoys narratives or just at least enjoys my ramblings,
yeah.
How many? Like, what are we looking at for the Bears? Like, what is when you look at the Bears, regardless of the model? When you think about last season, they won 7 games. They added all these pieces. They bring in Caleb Williams. Like, they shouldn't be worse, right?
They're not going to long run be worse. The beginning of the season, the defense was very banged up last year. It's a good defense. Obviously, adding Montez Sweat really helped, but the secondary was banged up. And once that got under control, things got better. You had 6 games that were 1 possession losses that could have easily gone the other way, something like that, right? So
yeah, well, they had a 90% chance of winning 3 games that they blew.
Okay, so 3 games they could have added to their, they could have been in a good spot for that. But I mean, that part of that luck is part of football. Yeah. But ultimately, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. I just think it's going to be a little slower than Bears fans want because Bears fans want it all yesterday. I don't you got to give the kid a little bit of a leash to grow a bit because it's not easy. It's not like you're sitting there, and he's had all of these NFL starts. He's not a fully formed NFL being yet. Let him have a hot minute because it's a good plan. That I like it. It's going to be better than it's on the up, but I don't think it's going to start off I think every Bears fan wants the win to be 41-0, right? And it was, something crazy, right? Nothing like that. I think it'll be, it's going to be a little bit more of a grind than that, and it'll start a little slower than maybe. But the good news is all the division games are at the back half. So if you're going to be happy about that, great. Back half, Caleb is great. We love what he's bringing to the table. Same with Rome. But let's give them a minute.
Well, I mean, and I think even going back to last season, Jacksonville was running away with the AFC South, and then Houston was just kind of steady before they kind of picked up and went on. The only thing that gives me a lot of optimism for the Bears winning a lot of games is because that early part of the season, there's not a game where you're going in where you're like, well, they're automatically losing this game. I think a lot of people are saying that about the Houston game in week 2 on the road at Houston. People are just sort of like, and like Braggs and I were talking about this, like, I don't want to come off like a total homer, so I'll give the Texans the win there, I guess. But there's not a game like last season where you had Kansas City early in the year and you're like, they're not winning that one. They're not going on the road at Kansas City. Like, even the most optimistic of Bears fans were like, yeah, we're probably not going to win that one. That was a real easy one. The rest of them, I mean, the Rams, but you get the Rams at home. And then there's other teams like the Commanders, and there's the Patriots, and there's all the Cardinals. There's a roadie to the Cardinals. And so, like, you look at it and you're like, and going on the road and playing in London against the Jags, and you're like, okay, like, I could see them losing that one. That's going on the road, the rookie's first time playing abroad. Fair enough. But I think those early part of the early season games, because they're winnable, it gives the team hope. And because they've done such a great job of putting together a great team, at least a great offense, that it's not going to have to be all Caleb. Like, he could go out there and throw for 214 yards, and the Bears can still go out there and it still should beat the Tennessee Titans, right?
The Titans, yeah. I mean, the Texans, to me, because they have a defensive-minded head coach and they have a rookie, or I guess second-year quarterback, but when he was a rookie, exceeded expectations. That's just a hard game, period, full stop. Like, they have a really good team. It's not a unwinnable game. I don't think there's any. I actually don't even think that, the Lions beat the Chiefs to start the season last year. So it's not like any of these games, especially when you seem to have solved for quarterback, that feels like a better, you always have a better chance. But again, give the kid a little bit of a moment to get his sea legs under him. But it is always a little bit more like when teams go up against Eberflus, it's not easy when you have a defensive minded head coach, you're always going to have a little bit more of an advantage against those rookie quarterbacks early on. You just are, because that's what you see the best. D'Amico Ryans played the positions. He coached the position, that it just helps. Like it's just an advantage for him.
Yeah. And again, I think that most people, trying to be, we try to be, I know it doesn't seem like it a lot, but I do try to be realistic. I'm always going to take the Bears' point of view in all these cases. Like, I'm like, I will give them the benefit of the doubt. But I think when you're looking at that, because of D'Amico Ryans, and it's not necessarily, and I think Houston will be fine this year, but it's so funny that people are acting like Houston, like, well, this is a 14. I'm like, Houston's fine. Like, they kind of arrived ahead of schedule a little bit, and they could regress a little bit, but still be better, but their record be worse, if any of that makes sense. But at the same time, early in the season, especially given a layup, like, I kind of like that they gave the Bears the Titans to begin with. I know a lot of people are clamoring for them to play the Lions or doing all this other stuff, but like a noon game against the Titans, like, oh, sign me up. Like, I've had too many moments in my life where I've gone up like, Packers week 1, we're going to settle this. Now in 2018, that almost happened. If Kyle Fuller could have held on to an interception that Aaron Rodgers gift drafted him, the Bears go to the Super Bowl. But in any event, like, I think that there's something to be said about, like, just give me the Titans, give me the Texans, like 2 games that aren't going to matter to us. And like, this is one of the things that I'm always advocating for, is like most of our like non-division games should be early, so we get a chance to get a ramp up like the way the colleges do. Where outside of Tennessee and Florida, it's like, you're playing, Middle Tennessee State. You're not opening up with, the Wolverines.
Unless you're Appalachian State a couple of years ago, don't worry about it. But yeah, no, but I also think that it's a good one because I don't know how I feel about Will Levis. And I feel like that is a spot where having a defensive-minded head coach in the Bears is an advantage here, because I don't know how, like, Callahan's kind of Bengal-like, at least past, will translate with Will Levis, because there's something about, Joe Burrow makes that a little bit more palatable than like even if Will Levis turns out to be really good, it's still just his second season, and he didn't play the entire first season. So, he played some of it, but he didn't play. He's not a rookie, but he's not in his second season, but he's still in kind of rookie territory for number of snaps.
Oh yeah, he won't get the benefit of the doubt though. The benefit of the doubt only goes to Jordan Love. We're like, hey, in his rookie season, he's in his 4th year. Like, what do you mean? He's been in the NFL for 4 years. Like, everybody loves to be like, oh yeah, like it's first. I'm like, it's not his first year. He's been around forever. He was in the same draft class as Justin Herbert. Like, stop it. Like, I need that to stop. So give Will Levis, if you're gonna give Jordan Love, I don't know, any chance for me to take a shot at the Packers, I'm gonna do it. But listen, I want to thank you so much for being here. This was very helpful for us. I think we're on the same page with the Lions. Although with the way your model is, I think you think the Lions are going to win 12 games. That's just me. That's the vibe that I'm getting. But I know that you round down the numbers a little bit, which I'm sure the Bills fans appreciate completely, and don't take shots on you online at all. You were on the Bills broadcast, but yet they're still upset at you.
I think, well, first of all, Bills Mafia wants you to say 17-0 every single time. They're amazing fans. Like, Pittsburgh getting the draft in 2026 is going to be awesome. But I think we should start a petition now for Buffalo to get the draft, because the Buffalo would be incredible as well. We all know Green Bay won't do very well next year. Just kidding.
No,
but
that'll be lame.
But I do think Buffalo should get it right. Like, they're just really passionate fans, and I love that they love it. You know, like the Bills have a really hard schedule. It's period, full stop. And the Dolphins have a slightly easier one. So picking the Dolphins to finish first in the East, they didn't love that. They weren't thrilled with that. Not thrilled.
Not thrilled. Well, let me see. I don't think they're going to like I do have that. I have them making the playoffs. So be happy, Bills fans. That's what you do.
But I have Miami winning the division.
That's the one thing. That was 2 years ago. 2 years ago when I was doing the Chiefs pick, where I had them with a winning record. And you wouldn't know. Like, I could have said, like, oh, the Chiefs finished with a winning record, and then we would have gone on and nobody would have cared. But I had to throw in the caveat, because I can see with the projection that I have here, like, there's 9-8 teams or whatever who don't make the playoffs. I don't have to give out that information unless you're going to go through and look through every schedule and figure out the tiebreakers, because I have the Packers winning 9 games but not making the playoffs. And so, but I'm not going to say that. I'm like, oh, the Packers win 9 games. And so, like, it still doesn't matter, because everybody's trying to, like, own me for my picks last year, where it's like, oh, look at this. I'm like, obviously the Bears pick was off, but, like, I had the Lions with a winning record making the playoffs. I was 1 game off of the Packers win total, and I was 1 game off of Minnesota's win total.
You were so far off. You were way
and they
off.
were like, look at this clown. I'm like, I am so spot. I would have won 3 bets right there if we were allowed to do such a thing. What does that even mean?
What does that word mean? Neither of us know. I did my compliance ticket very seriously.
Oh, that's true. Well, what happens? Are we going to be ESPN employees that can't use ESPN bets? I want to get to the bottom of that. That's my first question. When that comes out, I'm going to be like, hey, so can we bet? Like, the only question. Can we bet?
The real question you should get is, do we get our silver pass, which is where you get to go to Disney for free? Just say.
That's what I want. Like, honestly, like, I don't care about anything.
That was a really big perk of being a Disney employee. I mean, as an adult, like, I would take my nieces or nephews, or, like, you know, people that were kids, but, like, you just don't go there on your own. That's weird. But it was a good perk.
Really? Have you never been to Disneyland and seen the Disney adults?
I can't. It makes me, I get that secondhand, like, feeling of,
it was like, who's the little guy with the beard who does some of the fantasy shows with us? Florio. Sorry, I forgot his name. Forgive me. I'm sorry. I can't remember everybody. He was talking about seeing Toy Story 4. And I'm like, how did you see Toy Story 4? It's like, I saw it in the theater. And I'm like, I didn't realize you had kids. And he goes, I don't. I'm like, I don't. Please tell me you did not go by yourself to go see this movie. And I don't know if he's with his girl. I don't know if he's married or has a girlfriend or whatever.
He's married.
He goes, yeah, we went together. And I'm like, you guys, I would have left the theater if I saw you two roll in. Like, now, especially the matinees. Disney adults are like that too. But and that's the thing too. Like, when you're living in Stamford, Connecticut, or wherever it is, wherever ESPN is, that's easy to be like, yeah, we're Disney employees. Take all the passes you want. For people like me who live in Orange County, it'll be very advantageous.
That's right.
I'll be one of the few who will be able to take advantage of it. The rest of you, not so much because you live in LA. But for me, it'll be awesome.
I mean, that's really a good reason to drive so far when you go to work.
By the way, I will tell you this too. Like, there's people that we work with who I will not allow to go to Disneyland because they're always being like, oh, Anaheim's not LA. I'm like, well, then stay out of Disneyland. That's it. You can't. I saw one of our producers.
Where you were going
one of our producers for NFL Fantasy. He's probably the showrunner now, given all the attrition that's happened. I saw a photo of him and I'm like, what were you guys, where were you? Like Disneyland. I'm like, why? He's like, oh, it's so close. I'm like, first of all, you live in Long Beach. You've given up your Orange County privileges. You're the number one Anaheim is not LA person. Stay out. Go to Magic Mountain. Go to Universal. I don't care. Don't come to Disneyland. That's sorry. We've lost everybody. But
no, I love it.
I still say the Bears beat the Lions twice. That's my thing.
Well, we'll have to come back on here and duke it out during the season.
We'll discuss this again at another point, but I want to thank you for being here. I know you're very busy. You were just coming off those. No, you did the chess thing. That's a lot of stuff.
The chess thing was really fun, but yeah,
real fun. It was great. And so I appreciate you being here. It's a lot of fun to talk about this. It's cool to get an outside perspective. I think this one was easier because I think we're pretty simpatico. We both think the Lions are good. We both think they're going to be a playoff team, double-digit wins. I don't think there's any argument there. Obviously, I'm a little bit more optimistic on the Bears.
I'm not pessimistic on them. I'm just saying, you know.
I'm always going to be more optimistic. I was almost more optimistic.
It would be weird if you weren't.
Yeah, that's true. But want to thank you for doing that. Hopefully, we'll be together on television soon. I don't know when that'll be, but hopefully sometime in the future. But we'll get. Listen, it doesn't matter to us anymore. If not, we'll go. I'll allow you to come to Disneyland. I'll have my kids. I'll have my kids, so then it won't be weird for you. You can come by. Then it'll be fine. You can take my daughter onto Small World, and then you're fine. You're covered for the rest of the day.
Small World, but I'll take her to get a Dole Whip. Dole Whips are incredible.
There it is. All right, fair enough. Thank you so much for being here. We'll see you soon. And for everybody who tuned in, thanks for being here. Like, subscribe, do all that stuff. For Cynthia, I'm Adam. Roar and bear down. Arr. All right, Sammy, play us out.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast with Adam Rank on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.